Good morning. Right now, a military blockade thousands of miles away in the Middle East is inadvertently saving a struggling port on the coast of Kenya.
It really is quite the butterfly effect. Good morning to you and to our listeners joining us.
Today, we are looking at the invisible threads connecting global conflict to East African economics. Welcome to today's broadcast. We are bringing you a comprehensive update on the current events unfolding across the Horn of Africa and the broader region.
But before we proceed with the mechanics of today's top stories, we do have a brief message regarding the platform powering our broadcast.
Yes, right. This deep dive is sponsored by ProWave AI and generated by Stylo News, which is the AI-powered news application. And to celebrate 1 year of operations, ProWave AI is actually offering a special March discount on Stylo News.
Which is a fantastic resource. Listeners can use the discount code STYLO at www.stylonews.com. Though keep in mind this offer is valid until the end of March and is strictly limited to the first 250 subscribers.
And it is worth noting for our audience exactly what this platform is. Stylo News is the consumer version of the Stylo Intel Ops software.
Right, the enterprise system.
Exactly. That is an enterprise-grade system utilized by government, military, and international business operations.
So this means that you, the listener, have unique access to a tool expressly designed to support global decision makers. It synthesizes hundreds of traditional news sources and social media sentiment in real time. It basically gives you the exact same vantage point as those steering policy.
For the record, the title of today's broadcast is Horn of Africa Update, Al-Shabaab, Airstrikes, and Drought. Our focal region is East Africa, and today's date is the 23rd of March, 2026.
And our objective today is to map the primary patterns of events over the past 2 weeks.
Right. We will look at the local, national, and international impacts, identify what key decision-makers are attempting to achieve, and project the most likely events you should watch for in the coming days.
So let us begin with the security landscape on the ground. The tactical situation remains, well, highly dynamic right now.
It does. We are observing a sustained period of simultaneous military offensives and complex border management operations. The primary operations over the past 2 weeks center around joint efforts.
Right, specifically US Africa Command, or AFRICOM. They have conducted a series of targeted airstrikes against ISIS Somalia and Al-Shabaab positions in Puntland and Lower Shabelle.
Concurrently, the Somali National Army, acting in concert with the African Union's AUSM forces, has captured key strongholds.
Yes, this is Operation Badir, right?
Exactly. Operation Badir has successfully secured areas like Mubarak and Dar es Salaam. And ISOM has actually recently been bolstered by newly deployed Djiboutian troops in Beledweyne, along with Ugandan contingents.
Well, to understand the significance of this, we really need to look at the mandate of AUSM, which is the African Union Support and Stabilization Mission in Somalia.
Right.
They are tasked with fundamentally transitioning security responsibilities back to the Somali government. So when AFRICOM and the Somali Defense Ministry plan these operations, they are not just looking for kinetic victories.
What are they looking for then?
They are looking to systematically degrade the militants' logistics.
Okay, let me make sure I understand the mechanics of this strategy. If I am looking at a map, Mubarak sits in the lower Shabelle region, roughly, 60 kilometers west of the capital, Mogadishu?
That is correct.
Why is a town of that size requiring such heavy joint military focus?
It's because of its geographic utility. Mubarak functions essentially as a transit hub. It connects coastal access routes to inland movement corridors.
I see.
By capturing these specific geographic choke points, the Somali National Army and USM forces are effectively severing the arteries Al-Shabaab uses.
To move fighters and weapons, I assume.
Exactly. Fighters, weapons, and vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices heading toward the capital. It forces the insurgents to abandon paved, reliable routes and rely on less established, highly vulnerable rural corridors.
So it is like taking control of the main highway toll booths. You might not stop every single car from getting through the back roads, but you completely disrupt the heavy freight.
That is an excellent analogy, yes.
And this extends beyond Somalia's borders, too. Neighboring Kenya recently reopened its border, and the implementation has been, well, challenging, to say the least.
Very challenging. There was an improvised explosive device attack that injured 6 police officers in Mandera County.
Right. And authorities have also arrested several Somali nationals for identity fraud.
And that is key. The Kenyan authorities are dealing with the spillover here. Their primary strategic focus is border stabilization, but more importantly, the disruption of counterterrorism financing.
Is that where the identity fraud comes in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The identity fraud arrests are closely linked to this. Militant groups rely on complex, cross-border, informal money transfer systems, which are often called Hawala networks.
To fund their operations.
Yes. By cracking down on identity fraud at the border, Kenya is attempting to blind the financial networks that sustain the insurgency. They have recently had success in publicly identifying international financiers, which is a major step in starving the insurgency of capital.
You know, I am seeing a fascinating disconnect when looking at the media sentiment surrounding these operations.
Oh, so?
Well, traditional outlets, such as Garo Online and Ward Here News, are reporting heavily on the tactical progress of Operation Badir. They paint a picture of steady territorial reclamation. But if you look at social media platforms like X, there is a starkly different narrative.
Yes, there's distinct bifurcation there. The public discourse on social media reflects palpable alarm regarding Al-Shabaab's persistent ability to strike soft targets, despite losing territory.
Right.
It highlights a common phenomenon in asymmetrical warfare. A government must secure the entire country to project safety, while an insurgent group only needs to execute one successful attack to project power.
That makes a lot of sense. Though it is worth noting that across all platforms, there remains strong, unified public support for the African Union's stabilizing presence.
Absolutely.
Based on this, it seems the most likely courses of action in the near term include continued joint military offensives to consolidate these newly acquired territorial gains.
And simultaneously, we expect to see Kenyan security forces implement much stricter border vetting protocols to mitigate that cross-border infiltration and financial smuggling.
Precisely. But as we know, territorial gains are only as solid as the political foundation beneath them.
Right. You cannot secure a perimeter if the command center is fracturing.
And right now, the political landscape in Mogadishu is experiencing severe turbulence. The Somali parliament recently approved a constitutional amendment extending the president's term by 1 year.
Which effectively delays national elections.
Yes, and it has caused a massive internal rift. The Southwest state has formally suspended cooperation with the central government, publicly accusing federal officials of collusion.
The mechanics of this dispute revolve around the definition of security. The Somali federal government's perspective is pragmatic from a military standpoint.
Because of the ongoing operations.
Yes. They argue that term extensions are a vital necessity to ensure continuity of leadership. From their view, attempting to hold nationwide, credible elections while simultaneously executing a massive offensive like Operation Badir is logistically impossible.
And poses a massive security risk to voters, presumably.
Yeah, exactly.
But the opposition leaders and regional state governments, like Southwest State, view this through a constitutional lens. They argue that this maneuver fundamentally undermines democratic legitimacy, bypassing electoral timelines to centralize power in Mogadishu.
It is a dangerous deadlock. And this internal fragility is having immediate external consequences as well.
Right. High-level international diplomacy recently took a hit when Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi canceled a rare scheduled visit to Mogadishu.
And that was due to an unexplained, severe citywide security lockdown, correct?
Yes, it was. And that cancellation is highly indicative of China's broader diplomatic strategy in East Africa.
Right. They operate on a model of cautious engagement.
Exactly. They are highly willing to invest in infrastructure and partner on economic initiatives, but their threshold for unpredictable physical security is very low. When the internal political disputes in Mogadishu bleed into unpredictable citywide lockdowns, Beijing simply pulls back.
And the diplomatic maneuvering does not stop there. We are also tracking movements by Somaliland on the international stage.
Yes, Somaliland is actively pursuing strategic ties with Israel, which potentially includes the establishment of a Red Sea military base.
Why would Israel be interested in this specific stretch of coastline?
It comes down to maritime geography. Somaliland sits right on the Gulf of Aden, leading into the Red Sea. For Israel, establishing a presence there serves as a direct geopolitical counterweight to Iranian-backed Houthi activities.
Which have been severely disrupting shipping lanes, of course.
Right. And Somaliland, which operates independently but is not internationally recognized as a sovereign state, uses these high-stakes agreements to force the international community to acknowledge its autonomy.
Which naturally infuriates the federal government of Somalia.
It does. And we saw Mogadishu react in a very calculated way regarding regional alliances. Somalia officially condemned Iran's recent missile strikes on Gulf states, but notably excluded the United Arab Emirates from its statement of solidarity.
And that exclusion is highly strategic. The UAE has historically shown support for Somaliland's autonomy.
Most notably by investing heavily in the Berbera port facility there, right?
Yes, exactly. By deliberately excluding the UAE from a regional statement of solidarity, Mogadishu is signaling its diplomatic displeasure over the UAE's dealings with Somaliland. It is a very complex geopolitical chessboard.
Looking at how this is being digested by the public and the press, traditional media, including Radio Dalsan and the BBC, expressed deep concern over potential democratic backsliding in Somalia due to the delayed elections.
They also note the diplomatic embarrassment caused by the canceled Chinese delegation.
Yeah, social media reflects a complex mix of frustration over chronic political infighting, but also a sophisticated recognition by the public that the Horn of Africa is currently the center of a massive proxy competition between global powers.
And this political gridlock couldn't come at a worse time, because while officials debate term limits and international alliances, the actual ground beneath their citizens' feet is washing away.
The region is currently experiencing wildly divergent catastrophic climate crises. In Ethiopia, the government has declared a period of mourning after over 80 people died in catastrophic landslides in the southern Gamo zone.
Triggered by relentless heavy rains.
Yes. Meanwhile, Kenya is battling devastating flash floods. Nairobi and surrounding counties have seen widespread infrastructure collapse, resulting in over 42 casualties.
What we are witnessing here is the severe impact of the Indian Ocean dipole.
Could you explain that briefly?
Of course, it's a climate phenomenon similar to El Niño, caused by differences in sea surface temperatures between the western and eastern Indian Ocean.
Okay.
When the western Indian Ocean becomes unusually warm, it draws massive amounts of moisture into East Africa, resulting in the torrential rains and flash floods we are seeing in Kenya and Ethiopia.
And the secondary effects of these floods are just as deadly. The arid northern counties of Kenya are currently facing a severe surge in Kala-Azar disease.
Yes, Kala-Azar, also known as visceral leishmaniasis, it is a neglected tropical illness that attacks the immune system.
And it is transmitted by sandflies, right?
It is. The mechanism here is quite direct. The flash floods leave behind vast tracts of receding, stagnant water in normally dry areas. This creates an explosive breeding ground for the sandflies.
Which leads to a sudden spike in infections.
Precisely, among populations whose healthcare infrastructure has just been washed out by the floods.
But the Indian Ocean dipole is a phenomenon of extremes. Because while Kenya and Ethiopia drown, Somalia and parts of northern Kenya, such as Turkana, are enduring a severe and prolonged drought.
The rains simply did not fall there.
Right. Current statistics indicate that up to 37% of Kenya's population is facing starvation due to these compounding, wildly opposite climate shocks.
Naturally, this severe instability, driven by the combination of extreme climate volatility and the ongoing armed conflict we discussed earlier, is a primary driver of regional and international migration. People are simply forced to move to survive.
This brings us to a significant legal development in the United States regarding these exact migrants. The Trump administration's termination of temporary protected status, or TPS, for Somali migrants has been temporarily blocked by a federal judge.
To understand this dispute, we must look at the mechanics of the TPS program.
It is a legal designation, isn't it?
It is. It allows foreign nationals to remain and work in the United States if returning to their home country is deemed unsafe due to ongoing armed conflict or environmental disaster.
And the arguments in this legal dispute highlight the complex reality of Somalia's current state.
We want to present this neutrally, just looking at the facts. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security cites improved security conditions and the territorial gains by the Somali government.
Specifically pointing to successes like Operation Butter.
Exactly. They use that as the legal justification for ending the protected status. They argue the country is stabilizing.
On the opposing side, immigrant advocacy groups and the federal judiciary point to the broader picture. They cite the ongoing deadly nature of the armed conflict, persistent human rights concerns, the devastating impacts of the drought, and allegations of racial bias in the administration's decision-making process.
Right. The federal judge found sufficient grounds in these arguments to issue an injunction, blocking the termination order, while the facts of the legal dispute are pending further federal hearings.
For the decision-makers on the ground in East Africa, their resources are stretched incredibly thin right now. Governments are attempting to balance emergency urban flood rescue operations, like in Nairobi, with vast rural drought relief distribution in the north.
International bodies, specifically the United Nations and the World Health Organization, are urgently calling for an immediate injection of humanitarian aid.
But they're also stressing that reactive aid is no longer enough. The region requires robust, long-term climate adaptation strategies.
The most probable courses of action involve the immediate deployment of emergency relief supplies to affected zones. However, the long-term requirements dictated by these events include sustainable urban flood management systems to handle future dipole lines.
And significant international climate financing to build agricultural resilience in drought-prone areas.
It is a staggering amount of pressure. And yet, despite the weight of armed conflict, political instability, and extreme climate events, the economic gears of East Africa are finding remarkable and sometimes unexpected ways to adapt and turn.
Which brings us back to the observation we opened today's broadcast with. In an unexpected geopolitical twist, Iran's ongoing military blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has essentially forced global shipping conglomerates to reroute their vessels.
Right. To avoid the volatile waters of the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, massive cargo ships are adjusting their trajectories southward.
And this has brought a sudden, massive surge of maritime traffic to Kenya's previously underutilized Lamu Port.
It perfectly illustrates the concept of strategic geography. For years, Lamu Port struggled to attract significant shipping volume.
It lacked the developed hinterland infrastructure of older ports like Mombasa, right?
Yes. But now, by sheer necessity of global vessels seeking safe harbor outside of active conflict zones, Lamu is proving its utility.
It is like when a major interstate highway shuts down due to an accident, and suddenly a sleepy back road becomes the most important, heavily trafficked artery in the county.
That's a great way to picture it.
If you're a global logistics company, an Iranian missile strike fundamentally alters the shipping lane that brings products to consumers' doors. And Kenya is moving quickly to capitalize on this rerouted traffic.
Domestically, the Kenyan government has officially launched the second phase of the China-backed Nima Railway,
which is designed to significantly boost regional trade connectivity.
Yes, moving goods efficiently from coastal ports into the interior of the continent. Furthermore, the established Mombasa port has successfully opened a new direct shipping route to India, expanding East Africa's reach into South Asian markets.
And we're seeing vital movements in the financial sector to support the local economy as well. The International Finance Corporation, the IFC, has announced a $52 million funding initiative aimed at micro, small, and medium enterprises across East Africa.
And this initiative carries a specific mandate to support women-owned businesses, providing capital to the demographic most often driving local, community-level economic resilience.
When you look at the expansion of the Nima Railway, the surge at Lamu Port, and direct financial injections from groups like the IFC, East Africa is positioning itself to capitalize on shifting global trade winds despite the immense challenges surrounding it.
Looking ahead, there are several key upcoming events listeners should monitor to gauge the direction of the region. Rulings from the U.S. federal judiciary regarding the TPS immigration status are expected shortly, which will directly impact the Somali diaspora.
We must also watch for the potential rescheduling of Chinese diplomatic visits to Mogadishu. This will serve as an incredibly accurate barometer for the actual state of physical security in the capital.
Additionally, the trajectory of Lamu Port's shipping volume over the next quarter will indicate whether this economic boost is a temporary anomaly or a permanent shift in regional logistics.
Finally, the continued progress of African Union-led stabilization efforts, specifically AUSM's ability to hold the territory gained in Operation Badir, will be the most critical indicator of regional stability.
That concludes our formal analysis of the intelligence estimates for the Horn of Africa over the past 2 weeks.
Before we sign off, it is important to revisit the analytical tool that made this level of synthesis possible. Stylo News is available as both a mobile and desktop application.
It allows individuals to download and fully customize personal intelligence-style briefs, just like the deep dive you heard today.
The application utilizes advanced vector search and retrieval augmented generation, or RAY technology.
What this means in practice is that the app instantly pulls from over 250 traditional news sources, as well as social media platforms like X.
It translates and synthesizes data across more than 20 languages in under 60 seconds.
It essentially places the power of an open-source intelligence analysis cell directly into the hands of the consumer. You are no longer reliant on fragmented reporting. You can see the entire board.
To our listeners, if you require this level of data synthesis for your own understanding of global events, we strongly encourage you to subscribe. You can get AI-powered news on demand by visiting www.stylonews.com. And remember to use the code STYLOLOW for that first-year anniversary discount.
A great deal.
Okay, dropping the anchor voice. Man, it feels good to stretch out after that. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It is always a heavy lift going through this much global intel, but it's incredibly fascinating to see how it all connects, isn't it?
It really is. It's one thing to read a headline about a flood or a political dispute in a parliament, but when you put them all on the same map and trace the causality, the true picture emerges. I mean, everything is connected.
Exactly. We'd love to know what topics you want us to tackle next. Drop your requests in the comments or hit us up online. Make sure you follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms so you don't miss the next deep dive.
Before we go, do you have a final thought for the audience?
I do. I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over. When you look at the strategic real estate of the Horn of Africa, caught between global shipping bottlenecks, climate extremes, and intense geopolitical rivalry, you have to wonder, are we watching a region struggling with overlapping crises, or are we watching the painful birth of the next great hub of the multipolar world?
Wow, that's a question that really sticks with you. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.